All right, so once the resin mixture is kind of formed up and getting clear and it's warm to the touch, I'm gonna take it into our very secure bathroom. Shh, don't tell our landlord that we're doing this. But I've got some 6mm Visqueen up around the whole perimeter here, so none of this resin is gonna get on the tub surround or the tile, which is good because resin doesn't come off very easily. So I'm gonna pour it on gently here. I'm gonna spread it with this plastic putty knife. And you're gonna see the wood kind of come alive. The grain's gonna really start to pop, especially in this area right here. You got some burl. You're gonna see some really cool dimension kind of come into here. So without further ado, let's get to pouring. I'm gonna set my stir stick right down here on the Visqueen. I probably mixed up a little bit more than I should have, but I wanted to be safe. Make sure I had a nice, good thick pour on everything. And keep doing that there. Alright, I got about half left in my bucket, and now I'm going to take my spreader and you want to just spread it like butter on a piece of bread. Real nice, thick, gooey butter. It's got kind of the consistency of maple syrup. I want it to come off over the edge like that so that it coats the edge there. And I'm going to come back with my fingers. Notice I've got these latex gloves on. Well, they might not be latex, it might be a different material, but helps keep my fingers from getting too sticky with the resin. You can do this with just your naked hands if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. It gets really sticky. Alright, yeah, so see how it just kind of glides over. There's a nice little waterfall kind of cascading down of resin. That's exactly what we want to see. Now I'm going to add just a little bit more resin to the top coat here. Just add more to my pool. Hear it all dripping down. That's a good sound. We want that. It means that it's coming off. And before this, I leveled with shims the work surface so that when this resin dries, it's going to dry level, nice and perfectly level, because you don't want uneven resin and an uneven top to your, in this case, end table. It's nice and gentle, nice and gentle. This is my first time using this plastic putty knife, and I have to say I'm really liking it. It's got good handling to it. I was using the wooden stir stick before. I'm adding just a little bit more down here so I can wick it off. There we go. Yeah, that's a nice little waterfall there. Resin fall, as it were. Add a little more down to this end. It's always a race against the clock when you're working with resin because it will start setting up soon. I mean, I'm not sprinting, as you can see. I'm taking my time, I'm being deliberate, but I'm also knowing that, you know, I've only got a certain amount of time before this sets up. I'm just gonna take my finger and run it along here and get where these drips have missed. And make sure to do the back side as well. I'm just gonna do a nice little run on the front here. Kind of take my knife and just run it this way, run it this way. Anywhere where I see I've missed a little, I'm gonna take that, kind of run my fingers along here, make sure that we're getting it nice and coated. Get all over here, and then I'm gonna pour a nice little run back here. And get the spots that I've missed on the back end. Normally I like my workspace set up so that I can walk a full 360 around my piece, but in this case, I don't have that luxury. So I'm just using my eyeballs, being aware of what's dripping and what's not dripping and what needs some more resin. Being conscious. Going all the way around with my fingers, even wrapping underneath a little bit so that I know that the resin is coating even just under that lip, under the edge there. Got a little bubble right here. I can just pop that with my finger. There are going to be bubbles on this work surface after I'm done, and I'll show you a neat little trick on how I pop all those. Just a bunch of little micro bubbles here and here, and I'm seeing a little bit of unevenness here, so I'm gonna pour my resin. Just make sure that this area here, which this is going to be kind of the featured edge of the table, this is the front of the table. I want to make sure it gets nice and evenly coated. So I'm just using my fingers to kind of make sure that that happens. Your hand is really the best tool for this because it can adapt to the unique contours of every piece that you're working with. You know, this is not, there are no really right angles or flat surfaces when you're dealing with a live edge like this. So sometimes your hands are the best tool, but again, wear these gloves. It's gonna help you out a lot in the long run. No messy cleanup. You just throw the gloves right in the trash. All right, everything's feeling really good. Like I said, I did pour a little too much, but I'm, you know, instead of wasting it, because this will just go to waste. You can't save resin. It'll harden up. And honestly, a lot of resin just trapped in a container, no good. It'll get really hot, and in some cases, will catch on fire, as my father-in-law has told me has happened to him. So make sure you just pour it all out. Just use it all. It'll drip down, no worries. And you can pour out the rest onto the surface. And as I said before, this is self-leveling resin. So you want to make sure your piece is level because it's a liquid still. So it will just kind of conform to whatever is level. And I'm just going to scrape out. But yeah, that's looking really good. There's another little bubble that formed right here. You know, sometimes little holes in the piece, air gets trapped in there and it will come up, and even hours after this sets there will be some air that kind of comes up. So for my next pour I might have to go in and pop some bubbles as well. But for the time being, this is looking really good. I'm really happy with this first coat. The first coat is tricky because, you know, a lot of it, see right here there's a little crack in the piece, so bubbles are forming along that crack because air is trying to come out from getting trapped by the resin. So I can just kind of take my hand, smooth it over, and then I'm going to feel on the back here, just make sure I'm well coated here. Again, this is just the first coat, so the second coat will be going on this most likely, because the first coat, a lot of that resin absorbs into the end grain. The wood is really dried out and thirsty, so it will kind of absorb a lot of the resin in certain spots. That's normal. But for now, this is looking pretty good. And this is a spray bottle of acetone. And I'm gonna spray this over the piece, and what it does is it pops the bubbles. And the lighting in here is not good enough to where you can see the bubbles actually being popped right now by the acetone. And some people like to use a little hand torch to pop the bubbles. That will work too. I'm not really in a great space to do that, so I'm gonna use acetone. I'm gonna flick on the bathroom fan, because you want good ventilation when you're spraying this. There we go. I'm just going to mist the piece here. looking pretty good. Alright. Now, I would call that good. We're looking like glass up top. These drips are gonna eventually harden. I'm gonna have to grind them off after I'm done with pouring and when the piece is ready to be finished. But for now, we're finished with that first pour. I'm gonna call it good. We're gonna get out of here, let the ventilation take this, and we should be good. All right.